Hi guys, today you're going to learn how you can read and write decimals to the thousands. Make sure that you follow along and that you are writing the same notes that I'm writing in your book. Here we go. A box is filled with 1,000 cubes. Amy picks out 4 cubes. We want to know, how can you represent 4 out of 1,000 cubes as a decimal? Well, here are our cubes right here. And in our cube, we're going to have 1,000 cubes, which would be 3 zeros. So we would have 10 times 10 times 10, which would just be the same as 10 to the third power. Now, when we write a decimal, you can write 4 out of 1,000 as the fraction of 4 out of 1,000. So if we're going to say 4 thousandths, I'm going to set this up for you with place value to show how to write it as a fraction. So we're going to have our ones place and then our decimal, which I'm going to put in blue, and then we're going to have our other places, which are our tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So we have 0 in our ones place, 0 in our tenths place, 0 in our hundredths place, and we have a 4 in our thousands place. That's how we would write 4 thousandths. The number name for 4 out of 1,000 is 4 thousandths. Make sure you put the TH at the bottom. A decimal place value chart can help you determine the decibel. Notice that the thousands place is 3 places to the right of the decimal point, and that is very important. We have our ones place. Then after our ones place, we have our tenths, hundredths, and then thousands. So 4 over 1,000 can be represented by the decimal 4 thousandths. Now let's look at part C. We want to know how we can write 444 over 1,000 represented by a decimal. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so it's easier for you to see. Okay, 444 out of 1,000 is read as 444 thousandths. Practice saying that, 444 thousandths. And it is represented by the decimal 0.444. We have a 0 in our ones place, a 0 in our tenths place, a 0 in our hundredths place, and a 0 in our thousands place. This next part is a little bit tricky, so just try to follow along with me. The value of the 4 in the hundredths place, which is right here, I'm going to circle it in blue, is 10 times the value of the 4 in our thousands place, which is right to the right of it, and 1/10 of the value of the digit 4 in the tenths place. So depending on whether we're going back or forth, and we're going to practice that in a little bit. So we want to know, how is 4 thousandths the same and different as 444 thousandths? Well, which one do you think is bigger? Pause the video and try to decide. If you said that 444 thousandths is greater than 4 thousandths, then you are correct. If you were going to compare these digits, we look to the biggest digit, which would be the tenths place. In the tenths place, there's a 4 in 444 thousandths, but there is a 0 in 4 thousandths. So just make sure when you're reading the numbers that you're writing them in the correct place value. Let's go ahead and do some practice together. We want to know if you understand. If 4 cubes are pulled from the box on the previous page, what would you write the fraction how would you write the fraction representing the cubes that are left, the decimal representing the cubes that are left? Well, on the last page we had, and I'm just going to write this down so we remember. Oops, let me make it so it's not highlighted. 0.004, which is 4 thousandths of a cubes. If we were going to take 4 more away, that would be 8 thousandths. So if we're going to write that as a fraction, we would have 8 over 1,000. You can just write this in your book underneath it. I just don't have a lot of room. Or as a decimal, we'd have nothing in our ones place, nothing in our tenths place, nothing in our hundredths place, and an 8 in our thousandths place. So we would have 8 thousandths. All right, let's look at number 2. And number 2 is kind of confusing, so bear with me. It said 3/10 is 10 times as great as what decimal? 3/1000 is 1/10 of what decimal? All right, this is where it can get confusing. So I am going to go ahead and put this on a number line for you to help you understand. So if I have my number line, which is right here, okay, I am going to start with 0 in the middle. Now, to the right of 0 will be our decimals, and to the left of zeros will be our whole numbers. So we have 3 wholes to the left. To the right, we have 3/10, then we have 3/100, and then we have 3/1000. So if I'm moving to the right, 3/10 is 10 times 3/100. And if I'm moving to the left, because if it's asking 1/10, then you're going to go the opposite way. So 3/1000 is 1/10 of 3/100. And that is your answer. So if you're moving to the right, you're going 10 times greater. If you're moving to the left, you're going 1/10 of. All right, we are going to do numbers 3 through 6 and 7 through 10 together. All right, write each decimal as a fraction. So for my first one, I have 1/1000. So I'm going to have 1 over 1,000. I'll do the top over here, and then the bottom I'll do underneath. On number 4, the 5 is in our hundredths place because we have a 0 in our ones place, a 0 in our tenths place, and a 5 in our hundredths place. So we're going to do 5 over 100. All right, now let's move on to number 5. So number 5, and you can just write it in your book. It's just going to be hard for me. We have 512 thousandths. It's really important that you say them correctly. So 512 over 1,000. And then our last one, we have 309 thousandths. So 309 over 1,000. Whoops, I missed my 0 over here. My brain just grew because I realized I made a mistake. All right, we are going to move on to number 7. So now we have to write each fraction as a decimal. So on number 7, I have 2 thousandths. So I have a 0 in my ones place, a 0 in my tenths place, a 0 in my hundredths place, and a 2 in my thousandths place. Just make sure you write it in your book right next to it. On number 8, we have 34 hundredths. So we have 0.34 hundredths. Number 9, I'm going to use green so it's easier to see. Number 9, we have 508 thousandths. So 0.508 would be 508 thousandths. And then our last one, which I'm going to squiggle around and move it over here, we have 99 thousandths. Now with this one, you have to be careful. There's 0 in our ones place, a 0 in our tenths place, and then we have 99 thousandths. All right, you guys are going to do numbers 11 through 27 on your own. When you are done, you're going to come back on your screen so I know you are ready to move on.